So this is our sixth lesson in chapter 10 on trigonometry, and we're just going to wrap up a couple of things with solving equations. We looked at some solving quadratics before when we just had a single ratio, so in other words like sine squared and then sine here, or cosine squared and cosine, and we tried factoring and it all worked out pretty nicely. We still can't do that for this trick, for this question, so we're going to have to think of a slightly different method. Quite a tough question, because if you don't spot the first step, then actually you're not going to be able to do any of this question at all. So what we're going to try and do is look, see if there's any identities that we know here. And certainly there's an identity involving sine squared, so we're going to use that one. Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. And if we rearrange this for sine squared, or solve for sine squared, you get sine squared equals 1 minus cosine squared x. So we're going to substitute that into our equation here, like so. If I then distribute this, or collect the ones like terms here, 1 plus 1 is 2, negative cosine squared is negative cosine squared. And I don't like solving equations with negative coefficients, leading coefficients. So I'm going to times everything by -1, and then I'm going to try and solve this. Now it sort of looks like it factors. Two numbers at times to make 2, and then to make 3. 2 and 1 looks good, although we're subtracting this time, not adding. So actually this doesn't factor at all. So we need to think of another method. So another method we learned for solving this was the quadratic formula. So if we just take the coefficients here, 1 cosine squared x, so x squared, 3 cosine x, 3x, -2, -2, and then go ahead and solve this using the quadratic formula. A equals 1, b equals 3, c equals -2. You should pause the video at this point and try and solve this next step by yourself. When you do that, you should get these two answers from the quadratic formula. But remember, that's the answer to this question, not the answer to this question. So actually it's not x equals this, it's actually cosine x equals this. And then to solve this, we can do inverse cosine of this, which is 56. Find the second answer, subtract it from 360. And actually cosine x never equals negative 3.56 because it goes between 1 and -1. So if you used your calculator on this, it would actually say math error. And there are answers for that question. So slightly more complicated one, but certainly one you should take a look at. Now, if you want to try these two for yourself, and I gave a little bit of time for you to do this in class, go ahead and pause the video, have a try on those questions, see if you can recreate. It doesn't matter if it's sine squared or cosine squared, you're still going to use sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Solve for the appropriate variable, and then go ahead and try and solve it. We'll go between 0 and 360. And if you want to look at the answers, then you can see them, but try them first for yourself. Pause the video, and hopefully the quality is good enough that you can see the steps there. If not, the answers you're looking for are 66 and 294 for number 1. And for number 2, 27 and 153. So have a try on those two questions. Hopefully you manage to come up with those answers.